So let me know if you can hear me and see me. I can see a few people on. I want to make sure this is in the right spot. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Okay, we are up and we are live on YouTube. Good evening. Hi, Jackie. Hi, Pat. Hello from Canada. All right. I'm don't have an assistant tonight. I don't have Jenny as my assistant. We'll put it that way. Hey, Stephen. Robin is trying to get on to help me with questions, so bear with me. I may be doing this all by myself. So just hang in there. It's going to take me, a while to do everything by myself. Hi, Sandy. Okay, you can hear and you can see me. Awesome. So tonight we're going to talk about brushes, different types of brushes, how to care for them, how to clean them, best way to store them, some do's and don'ts. If you didn't get I put a Facebook post a couple hours ago to the blog on the Colors for Earth website. You'll see the picture of the brushes. If you just click on that, there is a PDF with an 8-page do's and don'ts and just basic information that I'm going to be telling you tonight. But that is out there that you can print that out, highlight areas, make notes on if you want to do that. Stephen says, I couldn't see the link on Facebook. You would have to, as far as Facebook, I'm only going to do YouTube from now on. Facebook started giving me a lot of problems. I did post this video, okay, out there, but you would have to go back to that one and then click on it and it would go live. So it is all through YouTube now. Hi, Marlene. Okay, so you can see and hear me well. Good, good. Let's hope it stays that way. We did have a bunch of wind the other night, but hopefully we won't have any connection issues. Hi, Anne from Washington State. Awesome. Okay, so Robin, if she can get on, she will help me. I know Shelly is out there in the background to hopefully help answer any questions. Anything that I pop up on the screen, it will automatically throw the link into the chat for you if it's something like Sumi brushes or whatever. Hello, Miss Shelley. She is out there. And I believe Robin is in my head now. She is joining. Okay. Yes, I can hear you. They cannot hear you. So, okay. So, I'm basically just told them I was kind of waiting on you and chit chatting for a second. So, um, also, all of my information I'm going to put at the bottom of the screen there, the website, colorsforearth.com. You can email me at info@colorsforearth.com. And you can also use the contact button on the website if you have any questions. You can put your questions here in the chat. I will try to go back and answer them. I'm not sure if I can answer them without it being live. So I'm going to rely on Robin to read questions to me and Shelly to help answer anything that she can. She's very quick, Robin. Shelly's on there, okay? And I thank her for being on because they've been dealing with all the fires out there in Colorado. And evidently, I just talked to her. She said that there still is smoldering embers underneath the snow that they have. So keep everyone in your prayers that's in that area because there's so many people that have lost their homes. I think it's approaching 1,000 now. Okay. It's because, yeah, Robin, you're gonna hear me twice because um, you've got it open twice. You've got here and you've got it open. Just mute your sound on YouTube and you'll be fine. Okay. All right. So let's get started. Okay. I'm gonna switch my screens and go to my overhead. Okay. And I'm gonna flip this around. Okay. So hopefully get rid of my keyboard so that I don't touch that. So what I wanted, let me go over first. I put this PDF out there for you. So let's just talk about the parts of a brush because a lot of people don't even know what those are. So if you've got a round, you've got the tip of the brush, okay, is the point or the end of the brush. And then the reservoir is the hairs on the brush. And let me zoom in just a little bit so you can see that better. Okay. So This is your reservoir, and you have this out there in that PDF that you can look at, okay? And then the heel of the brush is right where the ferrule and the hairs touch, okay? That's the heel. And the ferrule is the metal part, whether it be silver or gold, it doesn't matter. Some of them are more of an aluminum type look to them, okay? And then this is what is called crimping the head. And I should have brought some heads over here so you could, the head would be just this portion of it. And then we have handles that fit different. So depending on how large the brush is, you have to fit the handle to the size. And then you have to, most people, everyone should have a label on their brushes. So we have a machine that stamps the handles of the brushes with the proper name, but you have to have a match on that. Um, and let me move this so you can see. Can you see the difference in the crimping? So these three are, it's frozen. Okay, so can anybody else tell me out there if Shelly, am I frozen on my hands, or can you see my hands moving? Okay, I'm going to take that other screen away, Robin. So somebody tell me, you found the chat, Ginger. Awesome. Okay, so somebody tell me if you can see my hands, or is it frozen? I see it's frozen over there on YouTube. But hold on, it may be changing in a second. I got to wait for there's about a 8, sometimes a 15-second delay from my view to your view. So I need to see if you guys are still frozen or not. No hand movement. Okay, lovely. That's not good. All right. So let me go back to this. Okay. I got it back on now. Okay. So I'm waiting for the camera on your end, guys, to catch up with me to see if it's going to make a difference. Still frozen. Working now, Shelly says. Okay. So I'm switching back to me, and now I'm going to switch back to the overhead. So hopefully everything, it may be the two screens in one that had it frozen. And Shelly says, I'm frozen again. No voice. On YouTube, do you see it moving? I see it moving, or see my mouth moving anyway. You didn't? Okay. Lucy, you didn't? Right, right. I haven't switched back to that yet. You didn't miss anything, Lucy. I'm trying to make sure. Okay, so it looks like I'm back. All right, so now I'm going to switch to the overhead camera again. Hold on one second. Okay, so I'm on my overhead. Hopefully you can see me, and do you see my brushes moving? Okay, hold on. It may. Shelly says we see you now. Okay, hang on, guys. I'm trying to make sure because it looks like it's frozen. I don't understand that. Hopefully it'll switch and still frozen. She says 3 brushes in your hand frozen. Okay, lovely. All right, Robin, I'm going to refresh and you may have to go back in. I don't know if it'll bump you out or not. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Okay, it'll take it just a second to catch up. Yeah, but am I moving on YouTube or am I moving on my screen? Yeah, but I need you to check YouTube. There is quite a bit of a delay from when you, okay, yeah, I see it refreshing on YouTube right now. Okay, so let's see if it's gonna, why is it not? I just tested this and everything was fine. And naturally, okay, I think it's back. Miss Shelley, it's about a 15-second delay. Tell me if you see my hands moving. Yay. Okay, guys, I don't know what happened. I refreshed. Okay, so I was talking about the only thing that I talked about, first of all, is the handout that I gave you guys. It's on the blog page. It's 8 pages. These are that we're going to talk about the parts of a brush because a lot of people do not know the proper lingo, language, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so the tip is always at the end of the hairs of the bristles. Okay, the reservoir is the size. So the reservoir on this is all the hairs. So you've got different lengths, different types of brushes. The heel is where the hairs and the ferrule meet. So it's the that really tight. That's what keeps all your hairs in place and to the shape. Like this one is I think you can see that, a triangle shape. So it's a matter of the way this is all crimped in there that it's a triangle. This one is a flat, okay? And then you've got rounds. So it has a round opening. Okay, so the heel is where those two meet, and then your ferrule is what the hairs are held inside of. So, and I should have brought one over here to show you, this is what's considered the head of the brush. And so we take the heads and we match them to a proper size on the handles. And then you stamp the handles with the name and the size usually goes on there. Sometimes the company name, USA. Kala is our brush brand, so that's why that one has Kala. We have some that say Colors for Earth. Okay, and you can see that in the size. So they vary, and it varies over the time we've changed things as we've progressed. And then you've got your handle. Your handle can be wood, it could be a plastic. There's different ones. I don't have any of the like see-through acrylic ones. These are all wood that have different varnishes on them. Okay, that's what those are. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. The tip of the brush, the reservoir is the length of the hair. The heel is where the hair and the ferrule meet. And then the ferrule can either be gold, silver. This is more of an aluminum style. And then your handles. So the different handles, we have all different types of colors. Some people like Miss Donna Dewberry. She has a floral on hers. Okay, so that usually that will tell you different companies may have different colors for certain things. Okay, um, so those are the parts of the brushes. This is in that paperwork that I gave you. I want you to also pay attention to, and this is just a little thing to be aware of. Do you see, this is where the brush heads are crimped on to the handle. And Robin's going to read me any questions that are out there. So if anybody, yeah. So Shelly, I did not put the link to the blog page. If you want to plop it in there, it just has the brush picture on there. I did not put that here in my queue. Okay, so look at the crimps, and I'm not picking on any particular company or person or anything. I just want to show you the difference. Okay, so do you see on this one, it's very loose. That's an aluminum ferrule. Okay, Robin says we're frozen again, and I'm not sure why, because I have green bars. Okay, it seems to be going again. Okay, all right, so back to this, the crimping. Do you see how tight these three are crimped? You see how they're nice and tight? They're not going to wiggle on that wood, or plastic's a little harder to get them crimped on because there's nothing, you can't crimp into the plastic. The plastic is hard, the acrylic handles, where the wood gives and allows you to mash it together, layman's term. Okay, so these are all my brushes, and you can see how nice and tight they're crimped on there. They're not, once in a while we get one that is loose, but for the most part, they're pretty tight. Okay, this one is an aluminum, and this is very loose and wiggly. Yeah, it's crimped on there, but still not as tight. This one, not as tight either. Okay, and let's go to this one, which is extremely loose. I mean, you can literally see that moving. Okay, like I said, I'm not picking on anybody. I'm just showing you the difference and what to be aware of. What it basically is it's just like anything else. What you pay for something hopefully will determine the quality. Okay, so if you buy cheap, you're going to get cheap. And that's just the bottom line. And because a lot of things are being produced overseas, um, and I just really hadn't even noticed it till I brought all these brushes out, that these are aluminum, so they're a cheaper ferrule than the metal is. So that may be a reason why they can't crimp them on as well. That's just a little bit of an education for you. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Do we have any questions out there yet? Not yet. Okay, good, good. All right. So this is this particular brush is what I call my trio brush. It's three-sided. Okay, and I had this in water earlier. Um, when you look at a brush, let's go over this too. This one is dry. This is a smaller version, and this one is wet. Let me wet it completely and blot it. So when a brush is dry, it doesn't matter if it's synthetic or if it's a natural hair, and I'll explain the difference to those. It's kind of like your hair on your head with the natural hairs. When you get out of the shower, your hair is wet, it's squished down to your head. You know, it's next to your head. As it dries, it gets fluffier. So this brush is dry. Okay, this is a Kolinsky or a sable hair. When we wet this brush, and I'm just going to dip over here in my water bowl and wet it and blot it, it basically shapes that up so that everything is together now. So don't look at a brush when it's dry. Yes, we have a question. Is okay. So Donna Jansen wants to know: is there a way to make the crimping tighter? You know, I can because I have a machine. You could take a pair of pliers to it. I hate to say that, but that would be an option. Okay. Let me move back just a little bit. So that, is the only thing I could tell you to do. If you had needle nose, you could, crimp it on those lines that are there. But you can also put like a little dot of, say, super glue down inside where the ferrule and the handle meet, and then kind of press some pressure on it with some pliers and let that adhere to it. That would be another way. Good question. Okay, it's difficult without the right tool. Yeah, so Shelley put in there, it is difficult because if you don't, we have different size, because the different size ferrule, you see the difference in these sizes from large to small. So you have to have different dies that fit each head, that fit the handles. It's a long process. I won't go into all of that, but I just wanted you to be aware of what that is there. And this one actually is a little over crimped because it's got multiple lines. Do you see that? And this is one that actually I did when I first bought the company. So I was practicing on it versus this one here that just has two. So they normally have two, and that does it all in one when it munches down. It's kind of like a stapler, think of it that way, and it comes down over it and it crimps it onto there. Okay. Whereas this one, I have multiple lines where I was trying to get it nice and tight. Okay. So that was one of my mistakes in the very beginning. That was back in, about 7 years ago. Okay. So you have synthetic hairs So let's go to that real quick. So these are all synthetic hairs, and I'm going to zoom back in again. There we go. All right, let me move these down. How about if I turn them this way? That'll be better, I think. So these are synthetic. This would be a synthetic or a Taclon. This is a this particular one, and this one is more of a nylon. And a lot of times these are used for fabric painting, the nylon, or sometimes in oils also. Okay, you can use any brush in any medium. It's just some brushes work better. Okay, so what's Shelly saying? I'm only okay. Talisa has a question. Do I have anything in my water bowl but water? No, ma'am, I do not. And here it is, just water. Okay, just water. Good question, though. Um, okay, so we talked about the parts. We're going to talk about synthetic and the different types of hairs. Okay, now when I say synthetic or Taclon, do you see the variance of color that they can be? They can be this golden, they can be a little bit more golden brown, more. These are what we call our golden onyx. They have a darker tip on them, which is a little bit finer grade. And then this is just a Taclon. Okay, here is another one that has the darker tip, another one of our golden onyx. So it's a little different hairs, and the way they're dressed or treated, um, the quality of them go up or down. That's probably the easiest way to explain that. Okay. So these are all man-made hairs that you're seeing here. These are nylon, and I would recommend these for fabric or for oil painting. This black, and this is a brand new one. I left this so you could see. Do you see how most brand new ones are stiff? The other thing is they have a casing on them. Okay, most of this is for shipping purposes. Do not try to put these back on. You can make circles like fish eyes, bubbles with them by dipping them in the paint, but don't try to put them back on there. Okay. When they come off and I'm at shows and people are going through things, sometimes they fall off. I will put them back on because I know how to do that, but don't put them back on. For one thing, most people would clean their brush and try to stick that back on. Well, then you've got moisture in your brush. You put it inside plastic, and what's going to happen? It's going to grow mold. Okay. You do not want that in there. Okay, so when you take this off, you can now use this for dipping in your paint and coming over here and making circles, but do not put it back on. Okay, so that's all it's good for, is for shipping purposes. Okay, so this one is stiff. So what happens is when we make the brushes and the heads come in, they have what we call sizing in them. The sizing is almost like think of it as a starch or a soap in there. It's more of a starch just to harden all the hairs and keep them together. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Hopefully. And now I'm going to bring my water bowl over here. And when you have a new brush, you want to put it in the water and just kind of swish it around and just gently tap it against the bottom, because all of that sizing, see, look how free that is now, comes out of there. Okay, so just gently swish it in the water and all the sizing will come out. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Now, this particular water bowl is a one-stroke water bowl that has the little grates on the bottom here. That's okay to use with caution with your natural, or excuse me, with your man-made hairs. So you could drag it across those, turn the brush over, drag it again, and that helps loosen the color. Okay, but don't beat it to death like that too much. Just gently across there. You shouldn't hear too much of a sound. Okay, but you can use this with your man-made brushes. Okay, man-made. not your natural hair. You would not want to use that with your good sable or Kolinsky sable hair. Okay. So your brush is basically a bundle of hair or bristles or synthetic fibers that are formed into a shape. Okay. Whether it be a square shape, a round shape. This one is what's called a filbert or a cat's tongue. So it has that rounded, it's a square that's been rounded off at the end. Okay. So this is a filbert. This is your round. This would be a square shader or a flat. I'm trying to think of what else somebody might call it. The When you see the word bright next to a square shader, brights are usually shorter, so they would be like 2/3 of the length, not the longer. Okay, so that is what I call a bright anyway. So square shader or a flat is what these are referred to. Your round is round. So all you got to do is look at the shape of that ferrule. If it's round, it's a round brush. Okay, if it's squared or flat, okay, so this is crimped flat. So that is a flat or a square shader, is how I refer to it. Do we have any other questions? Okay. Shelly's popping stuff in there like crazy, isn't she? All right. Thank you, Miss Shelley. I appreciate it. Miss Jenny got her booster shot and was not feeling well, so that's why she's not with us. Okay, so those are your man-made brushes, okay, that have more of a yellow tinge to them, or the white, the nylon that has the white or the black. Okay. All right. This is your sable. Now you have some that are called faux, meaning they're like fake sable, and this would be a couple of those. So this is a faux squirrel, meaning it's a fake squirrel, basically. Okay, those are faux. Now, this particular brush of mine, this is the 2000 number 4 KB, K being Kolinsky, B being blend. This has got Kolinsky hair, but it also has some synthetic hair in it. So the Kolinsky or the natural hair will hold the moisture and then allow it to spring back. The synthetic intermixed in there just makes the brush a little cheaper for the common person versus a complete Kolinsky hair. Because something like this number 12 or this guy here that's a 14, the bigger the size, the more expensive it's going to be. Okay. Kolinsky is, and mine say Kolinsky on the handles of them if they're Kolinsky, which are my 5000 series. So any of the fives and 5200 are these square shaders. But you see, remember I told you about when it's dry, it's bushy. You can kind of see that it's like bushy, like your hair is when it's dry. But once you wet that brush, which I'm going to switch it in my water bowl, get those hairs. And it takes just a second to saturate all the hair. And then, and I guess I should show you as I'm doing this. When I drag it off the side, I should look at that chisel. Let's see if I can get it where you can see it there. See that where all the hairs are back together and you have a nice chisel point, chisel edge on there. So they're wet. Like when you wet your hair all goes together when you're shampooing your hair. So same thing here. When you wet it, now I just squeeze that and I still have a lot of water in there. So once you rinse a brush and get it prepared, always wet your brush first before you apply any kind of paint. Okay. And then what you need to do is to blot it on a paper towel. Just, and it doesn't matter what type of brush you're using. That's a good rule of thumb. Always wet it. Think of it as your hair. You wouldn't get in the shower and not wet your hair before you put shampoo on it. So think of it that way. You need to wet it before, and think of the color as the shampoo. So you need to wet it and then you can apply the color. Okay. So what I was saying earlier, the more, you get what you pay for. So the cheaper a brush is, then it may not perform like a Kolinsky or a higher grade sable. So even this is my cheaper synthetic, This is a filbert or catstone. This is my higher end one. So they're going to perform differently. You get what you pay for, basically. Okay, so Talisa, Shelly is taking care of you, I guess. Okay, faux is fake. Yes, yes. Okay, any other questions, Robin, that I've missed? Okay, thank you. All right, so Robin is my voice in my head tonight, and Shelly is my voice on the keyboard, and she is right there on it. Okay, so Kalinsky, you've got sable brushes that, like, here's a round, here's a square. Okay, so sable is a natural hair. Kalinsky is a higher grade of that natural hair. Okay, so if it's only a sable brush, then it's going to be a little bit cheaper. It's not as refined. It hasn't been dressed. We call it dressing the hairs to make them finer, and they come together better. They achieve a point. They achieve a chisel edge. And if a brush is made properly, they should spring back and allow you to achieve those. And I'll do some strokes here in a little bit. Um, Red sable is made a lot of times from a weasel hair. You'll hear camel hair is another one that you'll hear. But sables don't have the same elasticity or the spring that your Kalinsky hairs will have. So it'll spring back and give you a nice chisel edge when you're coming off of those strokes, or a point when you're doing your comma strokes and around. Okay. This also is a natural hair. This is our fan brush. This is a white goat hair. Okay. Again, natural is going to hold more product. So when you're glazing your piece, this is what I recommend for glazing is the white fan. There are different fans out there. This particular one is by, we carry this one. This is a mongoose or a mixed hair. Little stiffer, used for a different purpose. This is great for banding and graduating, diminished banding, we call it, because it'll help drag the color as you're going around and down a piece. Where this one is very limp when it's wet, but you see they're both bushy when they're dry. When you wet them, they're all going to, come back together. Just remember that when you're looking at something. And, the biggest thing I think people used to do to me at shows was they would come up to the booth and they would pull the cap off first, which you shouldn't do. And then they'd go like this. They would flip the bristles. All you're going to do is break those bristles because they have that sizing in it. The starch is in there to help them stay in shape until they get into the customer's hands. And when you do that, it's like almost giving yourself split ends on your hair because you're breaking some of that. Okay, so don't do that when you walk into a store to purchase something or at a show. They may have ones there you can see a demo on, but don't pull the caps off and don't try to put them back on. If it comes off, hand it to the whoever's works there and let them put it back on properly. Okay, because you're going to get a hair caught and the hair is going to be outside the cap, and then you've ruined the bristles of the brush. Okay, so these are two different natural. This is white goat, and this is like a mongoose hair. The mongoose, we also have it for our stubby brush, and it's a stiffer brush. It's great for stippling. So this is a coarser hair. So if you were stippling in like the centers of a flower, I use it for bird feathers also. So it just depends on the technique. Okay, but they are natural hair. Okay, I'm double checking for questions. Anybody have a question, Robin? Or are we doing okay? Okay, we're doing okay. All right, so then we have squirrel hair. Squirrel is like my sumi brushes here. So squirrel is a very soft hair. It's not made, it is natural, but it's not made for brush strokes. When you wet it, it's very limp and it stays almost in that position. So it would not be good to do brush strokes with. It's more for watercolor, what I call sumi shading, that type of thing. Okay. There's also camel hair, which is more like you see, those wooden handle sumi brushes that you see in the craft store, and they have the really, really long hairs. That is more of a camel hair type brush. It's coarser. This is really, really soft, so you can do shading. You can blend two colors together with it. for your ceramic or on your glass. You can do different things on there. Okay. No questions? I'm moving on. Okay. So then we have like a bristle brush, we call these. The body of the hair is like from boars or hogs, which is a very stiff hair. It'd be more like our dry brushes. This is a particular brush that Tracy Moreau uses. It's called her fugly brush, ugly fugly brush. This one is a stencil brush. Now, this one is more of, it looks very similar, but if you look at that, this is more of a natural. It's just a stiff natural. This is actually man-made. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it kind of glistens off the bristles there. And that is synthetic or more of a nylon, tacklon type hair. It's stiffer and it allows you to pounce and stipple and stencil with it, but it is a man-made hair. It is not a natural hair. Okay. This one here is what I call like a hake brush. It's a larger, but this one is a nylon. Okay. And your nylons and your tacklons sometimes, especially the nylon being white, it will tend to, whatever color or products you put in it, it could dye the hairs with a little bit of that color. Okay. But it is man-made. You can see that it kind of shimmers right there. You can kind of see that. So it has a glossy coating. It's man-made. So the product doesn't absorb into these man-made. It just sits on the surface. That's what makes these great for the fabric painting, the acrylics, that type of stuff. Okay. All right. And then let's look at a few more Sables and Kolinsky's. Let me move this out of the way. All right. So here we've got some rounds. Here's that stubby brush that's made with the mongoose. So you can see as they're dry, they're fuzzy. Okay, can you see them how they're kind of, they look like they have a bad hair day. But as soon as you wet those, then they come together. So once again, I should just leave this up here. If you wet the brush, swish it in the water, and you can even kind of tap it, and then it all comes back together. Okay, so dampen the brush, get it completely saturated, and then I like to drag it off to get a point, but don't forget, you would blot it on a paper towel before you use it. See how that comes to a nice point now? It's not fuzzy. Okay, so you've basically conditioned the brush to receive the product, whatever product you're going to use. Okay, that's what you're doing. Okay, no questions? No questions. All right, wow. I'm surprised. Well, we don't have very many out there. Could you share the video, Robin, to my page, just in case? We've been doing on Facebook, and I'm just wondering if people may not have realized, even though I put that out there. Okay, so before I do any strokes, I want to show you. Plaid has a really good brush cleaner. Okay, it's this kind of bluish green color. You can, this particular one here is, it's called the Master's Brush Cleaner. Cleans oils, acrylics, watercolor, whatever. So it's basically a little soap. See that in there? It's a little bit of a soap. So if your brush was dirty, let's pretend this one is, and you swished it, you still got some paint in it, you would just gently rub it across that with some water, and it kind of starts to, you see it on the bristles now, it turns white because it's got the soap in it. Okay, and you would also be able, then what I would do is just work it out in my hand, and if there was any color in there, just gently pressing just enough that you work that soap or cleaner, whatever you're using, into the bristles, you would see color disperse if there was color in there. If there was a lot of color, then I would rinse your hand and get some more and do it again until it's absolutely clean. Another cheap way to go is just a bar of soap. This is just one of those soap holders. Same thing, just Ivory Dove soap and just work it in there. And a lot of times that'll become, yes, we have a question. Okay. Um, just rub it across that soap and it starts to gather it up on the bristles and it cleans it. Just swish the soap out. Now, another good thing to do is when you're done, you've got that brush clean, you could run it across that soap and then just gently pinch it into shape and let it dry like that with the soap in it. That's going to bring all the hairs back together, basically put the sizing back in it until you use it the next time. You would just rinse it in water before you start, but you should wet your brush before you start anyway. So that should be your first step. Okay. Okay. We have a question. Okay. So one of Robin's questions was leaving the soap in the brush doesn't cause damage. No, as long as you're using a mild soap, do not use, and I meant to bring Dawn, do not use Dawn detergent. It has a degreaser in it and it tends to get up into the ferrule and loosen the glue that's in there that's binding everything together. So I don't recommend Dawn. Just if you want to do the cheap bar soap, do that. Or like I said, this is I think it's called like soap cleaner, but this one is called the Masters. Let me see if I can get that where the lights. Yeah, the Masters brush cleaner, and you can just Google it. I don't remember. I probably picked it up at a show somewhere. But I can tell you that I mainly use, and I'm going to tell on myself because I put color in a brush a little bit ago, just purposely. So I'm going to use the Plaid, and I'm going to just put a little dot out on my hand. And this has still got some color in it. I'm going to wet the brush, and now I'm going to come over here, and I don't know if we can see it because I have green color that was in it, and this is a green. But see how I'm just pressing down, and this has three sides to this brush. So I'm just gentle pressure, trying to work that in there and get any color out. And then I would go to my water bowl and swish it, and then I would go to my paper towel. So if you're using the paper towel, you'll be able to tell if there's color still in there because it's going to appear on here when you touch. When that brush is damp, if there's any color, it'll bleed out on there. Okay. So that's what I tend to do because it's easy, quick, but any of those. And when you're using the soap, it can end up with a whole bunch of color on here. But as long as you rinse it, check it in your hand, that's what you want to see. Dove pink, Patty. Yes, you can use any as long as it's not Dawn, and it. You know that Dove and what's some of the other ones. But as long as it's soft for your face, that's what you're looking for. You want something that's soft. It's not harsh. It's not going to dry it out. Okay. Now, if you get a hair that goes wild on a brush, you can do the same thing. Put the soap in there and then work it into it and just lay it flat to dry and see if that'll repair it. I have even taken and put soap in it and then I set the brush in the freezer to harden it quickly to hopefully get that shape back up. Okay, Lucy says it's blurry all of a sudden. Hopefully that'll go away. I'm back to green bars. Sometimes it's when I move my hands too fast. Um, okay, I'll give it just a second to catch up with me and hopefully. Okay, master soap or good soap you would use. All right, I'm not sure why we're fuzzy because I'm showing 4 green bars. Hopefully, if I stop moving, maybe it will um, catch up with me. Yeah, yeah. Robin said if you stop moving, then I think you're froze. So yeah. Um, what about using one of those bumpy grate type devices? Okay, so I lost the question. It went away. Um, what? Yeah, I lost it. So, are you talking about like this? So you don't with your Donna Jansen. Okay, okay. So the bottom of this water bowl is bumpy. So you can use it with some synthetics, not your natural hairs, okay? But and then if you've got like the little heart with the bumps on it, those are mainly for acrylic type cleaning. Just be gentle. Don't beat your brush to death. That's the best thing I can say. Okay, it's still a little fuzzy. I'm not sure why it's fuzzy. Hopefully it will fix itself. Sorry about that, guys. The screen is fine on my end. Okay, so it could just be, just tried to do a live call on Facebook Messenger, bad reception. Oh, okay. Hi, Miss Lori. I'm glad you got to come and join me. Okay, um, so once again, either a nice gentle soap. This is Dove, the Master's Cleaner, or the Plaid has a great brush cleaner. Mako had a blue one, Mako Ceramics, that is really good also. I just don't have mine in front of me. I've been doing a lot of acrylics, so I had these back here. Okay, so those are my recommendations for cleaning. Okay, the plastic is the tiny bumps. Yeah, Donna, I think you're talking about like that heart-shaped one that has the individual bumps on it. Just be careful. Don't use it with your natural hair. You could use it with your synthetics, okay, or Taklon, but don't use it on your natural hair. If you used it on the natural hair, that'd be like taking you outside, hanging you upside down, and rubbing your hair on the sidewalk, which would give you split ends. And that's what you would be doing. You'd be actually breaking the hairs on this brush. Okay, so just be very gentle when you're doing, I'm going to bring this over so you can see it again. So when you're doing the bumps on the bottom here, which are similar to what you're talking about, just be gentle. And I'm not going to talk while I do this. You can hear it, flip it over. You would not go back and forth, only go in one direction, and that will help save your hairs from abuse also. So you would only, like if these were the bumps, you would go one direction, one direction, one direction. You wouldn't go back and forth like this because you're going to be beating up the brush like crazy. So Shelly, is this reception good on your end? It still looks fuzzy on my side that I'm seeing. Okay, it could just be internet reception. Okay. So any other questions out there? Yes, the heart shape. Okay, so just if you do it on that one, it's kind of like the bumps that are on here. Okay, you could pull it one direction, flip it over, and pull the other direction, but I wouldn't go back and forth across it. Okay. The other, since I've got this up here, did you know that these paint palettes have those little notches on them? Actually, that if you lay your brush in between there, your brush will not roll around. It helps steady that. Okay, so that's another little tip. All right. Good here, Shelly says. Okay, good. All right, so let me put these away, and I'm going to get out my palette real quick. I'd like to keep this to an hour, but I want to show you the difference in some strokes. Okay, so what are we going to do first? Who remembers what you do first before you load a brush with color? And whoever answers this correctly, that Robin sees with the first correct answer, because everybody's internet is different, will win one of the small trio brushes. It has 3 sides. Now, Shelly, don't put the answer out there. Okay, don't put the answer. What should you do before you use any brush? I don't care if it's synthetic or it's natural hair. What is the first thing you need to do? Can anybody answer me that's on live? Wet the brush. Donna, is that who you see first too? Okay, that's who I see. Okay, Donna, you are the winner. And Robin, do you? Never mind. I'll write it down. I got a piece of paper. Okay. So we've got a small trio for Donna Jansen. Donna, if I've never shipped to you, can you on Messenger on Facebook, will you send me a private message with all of your information, shipping, email, so that I can send you tracking? Okay, so you get a small trio brush. All right. All right, so I think that's one I'll load. Okay, so I'm going to wet my brush over here in my palette, and let me back the camera off a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to wet the brush. I'm going to blot it on a paper towel. Okay, and then I'm going to load. Now, this has 3 sides to it, but I'm going to just pick up all the green, and I'm using, this is my ceramic color. This is Color Concentrate 160 Key Lime, and I'm just working that into the brush. So you need to work it into it. Just don't dip into the color and go. You need to saturate the hairs. In other words, it's like shampooing your hair. You've got to get the product in the bristles for it to carry and do the stroke for you. And then when you're double loading, which is what I'm going to do here, your brush with two colors, you need to make sure that those colors are the same consistency. And I can tell you that this 162 Laurel Green is always, the darker the color in my color line, it's thicker. And we need to, I'm going to dip my handle of my brush into my water bowl, which gave me 1 dot of water. And I'm just going to mix this up so that it's the same consistency. Because if it's not, then it's not going to be properly loaded. So I've got the lighter green mixed in it. And you know what? I still have glitter everywhere from doing ornaments. I mean, imagine that. And I'm just going to grab the bottom. So I put the color just on the bottom of that brush. And now I'm going to move that out of the way so you can see. So if I were doing like grass or seaweed, I can press all the way down, pull, 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 start to lift, 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 and come to a point. I'm going to reload. Did you have a question, Robin? Hey, Miss Nina. Okay, so this particular brush has a nice point. You can literally, if it's loaded, I can make a fine, fine line. Look at that, just using the tip. And I'm standing mostly straight up, maybe a 90-degree angle, but you want the product that's on the brush. So that's another thing. When you're doing any kind of brush work, you want to stand up. You don't want to be laying down like a pencil because the color needs to flow down to the tip. Do you see that tiny, tiny line that I did? Is that crazy? So I'm going to tip in just a little bit more of the dark. I'm going to press. I'm going to lay to the side, lift it up, press again. So this is, you can do ribbons with this and then come off. So this is called the trio brush. And you know what, Shelly, I don't remember if I put this in my, hold on, let me look real quick. And I might have a link to it, but I don't know because my little links aren't popping up very good. I don't think I do. Yeah, I don't. Okay. If you want to go grab it, you can. Okay. You can also lay it to the side and come up, lay it to the and create a leaf, like a tropical leaf. Reload, and I didn't rinse. I'm just reloading with both colors, and now lay it to the other side. Lay it to the other side, and you can leave it jaggy on the ends, which would be more of like your palm frond type. Okay. And then if you put a little bit of dark on it, you could come in with just the tip of that brush, look at that, and put in a vein. Okay. So this has got two colors on it. So press. This is great for a poinsettia also. So if you were doing a flower, and then you could come back and come in between and go all the way around. Okay, so let's rinse that brush, and I'm just swishing it, and then I'm going to check it on a paper towel to see if all the color's out. Okay, I still see a little bit of a light green, so I'm swishing more. Okay, we have a question. Okay. Okay, so Lisa wants to know, is this the same thing as a deerfoot? No, it is not. A deerfoot stippler is, in the ceramic world, is a round brush. I don't have one here that I can show you. It's round, it's short, it's a coarser hair, and it usually has a slant to it. More, okay, like this one has an angle to it. Imagine this being round. And a lot of the deerfoot stipplers are even that black nylon, and we used them for a lot of like applying mother of pearl, a lot of your different over glazes. Okay. All things on the page are done with the tree. Okay, thanks, Shelly. She is so fast. She's as fast as Miss Jenny. She is like on it. Okay. So no, it is not the same, but that's a great question. Okay, and we have this in two sizes. This is the small and the large. Okay, so if you do a search on Trio on the website, the product number is 1750, and then there's a drop down that says small or large. Okay, your synthetic or tack-on brushes are much cheaper than your natural hair brushes. Like I said, um, the better the brush. Now, would I use my $65 number 14 square shader in acrylics? Absolutely not, because I have separate brushes from acrylics from ceramic paint. Okay, so this is great for your ceramic. Okay, here is your acrylics, and you would use a tack-on brush similar to these, or even the Trio. But the Trio is only available in the tack-on, because if we made this in a sable, you wouldn't be able to afford it. Okay, so but remember, the tack-ons are great for acrylics because these are kind of plastic and they adhere to this to carry the stroke, where your fired products, whether it's glass paint or ceramic paint, it absorbs, and the natural hairs hold that and carry it further as you go across your piece. Hopefully that makes sense. Did we have any other questions? Okay. All right. Shelly is on it there. All right. So I am going to, actually, I'll just use this big 14. No. Let's see if I have a smaller one. I don't have, all I've got is, yeah, I do. Nah. Okay. So I'm going to wet that brush first, blot it on the paper towel to remove the excess moisture, and then I'm going to come over here. Now, a lot of people, when they load, they just dip in and that's it. You know what? You pay for all the hairs. You can use it all the way up, not just on the tip. Okay. You need to load it like you would champagne. Yeah, right. Shampoo on your natural hair. If you need to come out here and work it in, that's okay. But I'm loading the bristles and getting them coated. It's going to carry it further. It's going to allow me to do more with it. So that is a fully load. Okay, and then you can gently drag it off the edge to get that nice chisel edge, or you can come over here and flatten it also. Now, when I do a corner load, I'm going to put the writing of the brush towards me. That way I always corner load in the same corner. Did you guys notice I got colored tips on my fingernails for the holidays? Isn't that cute? My gal convinced me to do that. All right, side note. There is a corner load. It's usually a third, no more than a third, and then you want to work it into the bristles, flip it over, dark next to dark, and work it. And you want to be fairly quick about it. You don't want to go 1, 2. You want to be quick. You want to push those colors together to blend them. Okay. All right. So let's do, let's say like a wedge stroke. So you start on the chisel, you press down, lift, lift, and come off the chisel. Okay, and I'm not going to go into a lot of brush strokes, but I want you to see the difference in the hairs. Press, pull, and lift. I'm not turning the brush. This is also called a leaf stroke, a slider stroke. You can also do what's called the S, where you drag it, and then you press, and then you drag it again, which is great for, if you were doing leaves, you can start up here where your ground wood is at, and you can pull in some fine little leaves. You can go back and just pick up what's on your palette there. So when you press down, you should see a variegation from dark to light or light to dark. Okay, you shouldn't see a line of color. So if I went over to my palette again and I loaded, make sure the writing of the brush is towards me, and I tipped in that, now watch what happens. If I press down, you're going to see a really dark, and there's no blend like this one. Okay, so you have to blend it together quickly to get that nice blend across your brush. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Let me put it up closer. Okay, so see here where you've got a real stark line. So that one was not blended. I just tipped into it. These were blended and then stroked on. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. After you load the brush, if you need to reload for another stroke, you can just re-corner in the two different colors and reblend. So if you were doing like bamboo, okay, so you could come and do a little bit of stroke and then pull out, do a stroke and pull out, do a stroke and pull out, and you can create bamboo. And then you can come back and create little leaves off of these, you know, coming off them. I would do it with a round brush, not with the square. But that's just to show you how you can do that little broken. All right, any other? I noticed your fancy nails. Oh, thanks, Lucy. When I get them done, they're going back. Color doesn't look good on me. That's why I do white. All right, so how are you going to rinse your brush? You're going to squish it. Do not rake it across anything. Just blot it on a paper towel or a towel just to make sure that you don't see any color coming off of there. Okay? All right. Okay, any other questions out there? Or anything you think I need to go over? Anybody? Okay. All right, guys, that just is a bare bones basic about just brushes, and we'll go into more strokes. I'm going to try to work on an actual like a Zoom webinar for brush strokes, and it'll be in multi-parts where we concentrate on rounds, squares, you know, and go into different things. Let me check my notes to make sure I've went over everything. So I talked about the plastic coverings. Do not put those back on. Okay, not good. Never bang or beat your brush, you know, against the side of your water container. Also, don't twist your hairs. That's another thing. Okay, so let's look at this more of a liner. I'm going to wet this because it's a new brush. Blot. So when I load this brush, I'm working that color into it. I don't sit here and twist it like this. That is not good for your brush. Okay, you want to drag it, drag it, drag it, drag it, and coat the hairs. If you twist it in there, all you're doing is knotting the hairs up. Okay, that just doesn't work. Don't forget, both products, if you're double loading, should be the same consistency. So this is a tipped into the dark. And then a lot of times if I'm going to do a fine line, I will kind of wipe out some of that excess to get a nice point. And then I can come in here and do strokes with it. And if you have a good brush, it'll spring back into that nice point. Okay, that's what you pay for. Okay. All right, so let's turn this. So if I were going to do like the little leaves coming off of this, you can come in and do those off your bamboo. Tip. Okay. So that's how you can do that. Or if you're just using that for, you know, a liner, it can make a fine line as long as you've got a nice fine point. So this is the reservoir. It's holding the product, and as long as you're upright or slightly cocked back, about, you know, like that, versus straight up, slightly cocked back. Don't lay like a pencil because you can't get off of the brush. If you're like this, you cannot, so you get to a stop point. You can't lift. And I like to anchor with my pinky so that I can do the stroke and it's free, and then I can kind of guide. So the next brush goes to, I'm going to give away a large trio brush, so the large one that I was using, to the first person that can tell me what a brush stroke is made up of. What are the 3 parts of a brush stroke? Does anybody know? I've preached this on many a lives, and it's whoever we see first. Press, pull, and lift. Press, pull, and lift. Press, pull, and lift. And that's not the answer, by the way. I get bent hairs because I do not pull them flat when drying. Okay, so Lucy, you can actually, was that Lucy? No, it's Lori. Okay, so you can just put a little bit of the soap, whatever the soap or the Dove soap, Put a little bit of that back in there, okay, and let it harden in there. That'll help shape that when you're done. Always leave your brush flat to dry. Do not set it up in your cup holders. Okay, and a really bad thing is these water basins have these holes on the ends. Don't use a brush and then set it in there to dry, because you know why? All the water runs down into the ferrule, loosens the glue. If it's a wooden handle, it's going to cause the handle to swell, the paint to crack and peel, and you're ruining your brush. You should always lay your brush flat to dry. Then when it's completely dry, stand it up in your caddies or whatever you're storing your brushes in. Okay? Talisa, you are correct. Color, pressure, and motion. So this one had two colors on it. The amount of pressure I put down determined the size of the stroke, and the motion being if I curved it, which I don't have enough on here. If I curve it is the motion. Okay, so color, the amount of pressure, I can do a little tiny stroke or I can do a great big long stroke. And the motion, whether you're pulling it straight, sideways, curve, whatever you're doing. Color, pressure, and the motion. Very good. All right, will you make sure I remember that? Who won that one? Talisa? She's won. Okay, you're sending them to me on Messenger. Awesome. Okay, so don't twist. The other thing is, and I don't have any hot water back here where I'm at, but don't use. I'm going to switch my cameras back, I think, now. Hold on one second, guys. Let me see if I can do this without losing. Okay. I am going to show me. Okay. So hopefully you see me. Oh, I need to unmute myself. Okay. Hopefully you see me and then you see the palette in a small picture. We'll see if this messes us up. Hopefully not. There's a delay from you guys seeing it, so I'll give it just a second. So color, pressure, and motion. Actually, I'm going to take that one off because I'm afraid it's going to mess things up. Talisa won the trio bus. Okay, thank you for putting that in there, Shelly. All right, so hopefully this all, helps a little bit, makes a little more sense. Maybe answered some of your questions. I was going to say, don't use hot water, especially on your natural hair brushes. Okay, the ones that are Kolinsky or Sable, or even those fan brushes. Just use warm to cool water and just keep rinsing them. Use your brush cleaners if you need to. Now, on your white goat fan brushes, those are white, so they could stain with certain pigments that are in our products. So it'll be clean, but it may be dyed a color. Okay, so as long as you don't see any color coming off, like on a paper towel when you blot it, then you are clean. Okay. Love your last name. Oh, okay. So don't use hot water. Just a little bit of soap. Like I said, if you need to reshape something, put some soap in your fingers and take your hair zero brush and reshape it. Now, on your Taklon brushes, okay, your synthetic or the ones we use for one stroke, the acrylics. So the ones that we're using with your acrylics, okay, you can actually, if you've got one that's really bad and it's got a lot of color down next to the ferrule, which is where it's crimped out, you can actually take some alcohol, regular rubbing alcohol, and you could put some in a little cup and you could set this in there, say for 5 minutes and let it, but don't put it over the ferrule. You don't want the alcohol to come up on the wood. So you just want, half an inch to an inch in the bottom, let it soak. We used to do this with our dry brushes years ago, and I'm sure Shelly maybe has done that too. Soak it in there, and that will help get some of that color out of there. You can use vodka if you want. I don't have that in my house, and I'd rather use cheap alcohol anyway. But if you only had vodka, you could use that too. People have told me to use hot water to reshape really bad fuzzy brushes. Okay, so it might work, but I would try getting the color out first, Lori. And a lot of times it's because we've got too much product on our brush and it's got up into the ferrule. So it's up down inside here and it makes it, give a bad hair day where it stands like this. So um, there's a particular brush that we actually do something in boiling water to make it shape. You can, but you need to clean the color out first, okay? And I would rather you try cleaning the color out and then put some of the soap in it, shape it, lay it in the freezer real quick, lay it in there for about 30 minutes to an hour, take it back out and swish it and see if it looks better before you try the hot water, okay? That would be my recommendation, okay? There's some that you've just got it in there, left it in there too long. So, I said that, the more you pay for a brush, the better the brush should be. And the cheaper the brush, you're not going to get the same strokes. So keep that in mind when you're buying brushes. Okay. If you go through them really fast, either you're not cleaning them, not taking care of them, or they're just a cheap. And because so many stuff is getting made overseas right now, it does make it hard to get quality. But there are quality brushes out there. Okay. And like I said, I bought Kala brush back in this is 2010, it's like 7, 8 years ago. So I learned a lot. I do not physically make the brush heads, which is the ferrule and the hairs, where the original owner was a master brush maker from Germany, and she physically had little cups that she stacked the hairs in and shaped them, and then she would tie them and then make the brush. It's quite a process. I don't have the time or the patience, I don't think, to do something like that. So it does, in that paperwork that I put out there on the website, it tells you a little bit about that. They have to be under, I think it's 3 years under a certain, a master brush maker, and then another 5 years before they can actually be a master. And Ruth was a master of brush making. So okay, great tips, contrary to things. Lucy, everybody has different theories. And I'm not saying that my way is the only way. It's the way I have learned. And like I said, I do have a brush company. So hopefully that pulls a little bit of weight. I better know what I'm talking about. And I've given you the paperwork to kind of back up some of this information that I'm telling you. Okay. Um, and if the brush, I told you, if the brush is dry, it tends to get fuzzy, like when your hair is dry versus when it's wet. Okay. And that's normal. When you dampen it, all the hairs will come back together again. New brushes will tend to lose some hairs. Okay. Because the way they're stacked and cut, there can be little shorter hairs within that, especially your natural hair. You will see that. So, like if you buy my Sumi brushes, or any of the Sables or the Kalinskis, you may lose 1 or 2 hairs in the beginning, but then it should go away. If you have any problem with any of my brushes, we back them. All you got to do is send it back to me and I'll send you a new one. I think in the 7, 8 years, I've only replaced maybe a half a dozen brushes that were just fault of making. So it does happen, but drink the vodka. They won't notice the paint. You're funny, Donna. Oh my goodness. Okay. So color, pressure, and motion. Remember, stand up more upright on your brush, but slightly tilted. Okay. So a 90 degree, but you want the hairs is your reservoir. It's what funnels the color down to the tip. Okay. So if you've got the color properly loaded, it and shaped right, it should flow out of there. Okay. And I think we talked about double loading. I didn't talk about floating color, but that's for another, that the paperwork does tell you about that, but we'll go into more strokes later on. But I hope you find that this was helpful. I would love your feedback. Tell me what you want to see next on a video. We'll go back to doing glass 1 week, ceramics the next. And if you have a certain technique you want to see, message me or put it on my Facebook page. Any way you can get it to me, email, whatever. I will take requests. Otherwise, I'll kind of just do my thing and we'll go from there. All right. Just take better care. It is, if you pay good money for it, and Lori, you're paying for most of it coming across the border into Canada, so your prices are higher. So definitely take better care. Take time to rinse those brushes out. And I can tell you, unless I have a lot of acrylic in my brush, very seldom, because I swish them until they're clean, Very seldom do I ever have to use a brush cleaner with my ceramic or glass products. It would have to be something that I've left it dry in there, and then usually if you just dampen it, it's going to loosen up and free it up. But it also swells your hairs, and there's other things. So just try to definitely clean it, before, and lay it flat to dry. Lay it flat. Do not stand it up to dry, because that's going to run down in here, loosen the hairs, and crack the wood, the paint. It's going to fall off, all of that. Okay. You're welcome, Talisa. All right, guys, I'm going to end it. Robin, thank you for your help. Shelly, thank you. And please be safe out there. I do have a link on my Facebook page. It's Shelly's husband, and there's a link that they are collecting money to help those that are displaced. If you can find it in your heart to give $5, $10, whatever you can do, it would sure help those people that have lost everything. Because I know I have been in a house fire and we lost everything when I was 17. So I totally get it. Fires scare me to death. But anyway, okay. All right, Ginger, good night. Jackie, Pat, thanks for watching. And I will see you next Tuesday, 7:30. Same thing on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel, share and like the video. That allows us to do more. And I will see you next week. Thank you, guys. Bye. Okay, hold on.